very warm welcome. This week we want to discuss about inheritance. You do understand that in object-oriented programming, inheritance plays a very important role. What is inheritance? We know in our real life, we have our parents, we carry some attribute from our parents, and we have some of our own attributes. We carry some behavior from our parents, and we also modify some of the behaviors. So inheritance is a very important concept, the very important second pillar of object-oriented programming. Now, talking from this point onward, inheritance, we want to talk about three things. One is the inheritance relationship, the subclassing, and the access control. By inheritance relationship is practically what you see, a relationship between an object category and its subcategories. Example, we say that in this picture you see the relationship. We have transports and we have various types of transports. It starts from boat, ship, we have car, we have train, we have steam transport, we have aeroplanes, we have foggers, but they all belong to a family which we call transport family. That means we create a relationship between these different types of classes and different types of objects. Now, what is the advantage? The advantage is that when we create a relationship, we carry some common properties from the parent. So it's very easy to create child. If I have a parent ready, for example, if I have a transport, I can create a new child, a new kind of transport very easily, which has its common characteristics of transport, and I can also add some special characteristics. Take a look. This is a transport, air transport, and if you see, this is a sea transport. Air transport and sea transport is transport. That means whenever we say inheritance, we say is. And you say land transport. So we have three different types of transport, but they all carry the characteristics of transport. That means they carry maybe goods, maybe human, maybe some other thing, but they are transport. So inheritance relationship is sometimes called is a relationship. For example, you see what I'm saying. Sea transport, land transport, air transport is a transport. This is inheritance relationship. So sea transport object is a transport object, land transport object is also a transport object, and air transport object is also a transport object. That means this is a superclass transport, and we have three subclass: sea transport, land transport, and air transport. That means if I create a reference or a pointer of type transport, like you say, well, transport X, then I can create a sea transport object and keep that object in X, or a land transport object and keep that object in X, or a air transport object, keep that. Why? Because all three transport is actually transport. So the beauty of inheritance is that the common properties, suppose you want to develop, you want to design inheritance. So what you need to do, you need to take a look at all child and find their common characteristics and bring that into a parent child or a super class, and then all child share that common property. You do understand we have a very important attribute, very important modifier we call protected. Protected is used to share the private property from parent to the child. So inheritance relationship is based on is a relationship. Each object will have its attributes and behavior defined by its category and subcategories. So what happens? As I'm saying, that generalization or specialization, that means generalization means if you go up, if you look at the superclass, that is more general. If you look at the child, that is more specific, more specialized. So for example, you see here inheritance relationship transport, I put an attribute speed which is common. Every transport has a speed. So I take this attribute speed in the general, in the superclass transport, because every transport has a speed, and get speed is a very important method. So, and air transport is a child of transport. So air transport is a transport. And air transport has altitude because when you are flying you have an altitude. So let me go back again. So what happens? We have attribute speed, altitude. Ultimately air transport has two attributes. One is coming from the parent, another is its own altitude, and we have two behavior. One is get speed and fly. Alright, so subclassing, Java supports inheritance through subclassing. You can create a subclass of a superclass by declaring a subclass, but you use the keyword in Java is extends. Remember, extends can only extend one class. I mean, you can create at base child of one superclass. You are not allowed for two in Java. So extend is a keyword which is used for one. So take a look at this subclassing. We create a rectangle. Rectangle is a class. We have two private property, width and height. You are already very familiar. We have a constructor rectangle, parameter constructor, and we have a get area method which we return the method. Then I'm creating actually a square. Square is a special type of rectangle. So I say class square extends rectangle. So rectangle become the base class or superclass, and subclass is a square. So by extends, you can actually create a child. So when you create a child, this is a private, it will not come. So we have to change. So subclassing, the square class is declared subclass of rectangle, and each subclass inherits in an instance variable, an instance method of the base class. But please remember, instance variable can come in automatically if you make it protected. But note, constructors and private methods are not inherited. You can understand. If I have a property and I make it private, it will not come in my child. And constructors are not inherited. So beside attribute and methods inherited from base class, a subclass can also define its, I'm saying a child can have its own property and behavior. So look at this subclassing example, class audio player, and you have a private string audio file name. You have a constructor, default constructor, you have a play method and a convert method of type void. And then MP3 player is a special audio player. So you say class MP3 player extends audio player. You have a private property and you have a method. MP3 player has constructor, all audio files encrypted and plays. So what happens? Neither the constructor but this private property will not come in MP3 player. Why? Because this is a private property. So constructors and super, there is something very interesting in inheritance. Though you subclass inheritance private properties, well, although a subclass inherits private properties from its base class, but no direct access. What you can do, you can call the constructor of the superclass by just saying super. This super is a call performed, but please remember this must be the first line in the child constructor. The super string must be the first statement, right? So take a look at this. We have this class now, rectangle class. It is I'm showing you how we call super. Class rectangle, we have a private property. We have a parameter constructor. We pass width and height. We initialize our data member width with W and height with age. And then we have a get area method. Now, I'm creating a child, class square extends rectangle. I'm calling the, I'm passing parameter int size in this square, and I'm passing this both because you can understand a square has same height and width. So I'm actually passing the same size parameter by just calling super. It's calling the constructor of the superclass. All right. So see how it is happening. It's calling the constructor of the superclass. So constructors and super is a very powerful, but remember you cannot have two super. You can just have only one, and automatically a super statement is called. You can see here again class rectangle, we have two property. This is a parameter constructor with width and height is the parameter we are initializing. We have set width method, set height. If I'm setting the width and the height differently, so I need a separate method. Why? Because these are private property, I cannot directly access. And I have class square extends rectangle, that means I'm creating a child, and then set height, set width, I can do that. Yes, because this is a public method, I can call from the child. But compiler secretly adds a super automatically because you don't see that. The compiler displays this error message because why? Because there is a problem. You have two parameters and you are actually sending one parameter. So you cannot really go. What is the benefit? It reduces redundant code and code modification. A base class define all attribute methods you can inherit in the child, and you're saving lots of code writing. Make your program easier to extend because you can add new child and you can do your programming. So extends your program very easily and comfortably. Then increase code reuse. One thing is very important. We said reusability. Reusability is a very important aspect when it comes to inheritance. That means I can create new child. I can use the same code and create another one. So example here, Java library JButton class. We can create subclass of JButton to define object which are like button, and I have different methods. So these are actually very interesting phenomena. Method overriding comes in. Why? Because you have a parent and child can override a behavior. So a subclass sometimes inherit in a instance method whose implementation is not suitable. Why? Because the child sing differently or child talk differently. So look at it here. You have a class circle again, private member. You have a constructor, parameter constructor, and then you have a get area method. It's calculating the area and displaying. Then you create a child point by extending the circle. You have a private property, integer xy. Then you call super, because you don't have point has a 0 radius circle, right? So you put a 0 here. So point class inherits the radius automatically. Get area is part of this point class and it's automatically coming. So application, you see what happens. I'm actually inside the main method. I'm creating a circle object, new circle, then creating a point object, and now I'm getting actually circle.getArea and point.getArea, and we see the differences. So output area calculated in circuit, and area calculated in getArea, because it's actually 0 point, you understand that, automatic get area, and the area of point object is 0. So for efficiency it's unnecessary to calculate the area and it's automatically called, you see. So that's all about our inheritance first part discussion. We discuss again and enjoy learning object-oriented programming.